Picture this. You don't wake up to sunlight. You wake up to pain. It pulses in your leg, drowning out everything else. You are lying in a dark, reeking hold. The air here is thick as syrup, soaked in the stench of unwashed bodies, putrid water, and old fear. A figure looms over you. In the dim lantern light, you see his face, coarse, sweating, indifferent. His leather apron is stiff and black with the dried blood of dozens of men who lay here before you. His hands, rimmed with black filth under the fingernails, hold not a scalpel, but a rusty carpenter's saw. In his other hand, a filthy cup of the cheapest, fiery kill devil rum. This is your last chance. You are aboard wicked waters, and this butcher is your doctor. Forget everything you've seen in the movies. Forget the romantic fairy tales of noble outlaws and a merry life under the black sail. Today, we are dragging the very bottom of the golden age of piracy,
This is going to be exquisite.
down where bravery died and only animal terror remained. We are talking about 18th century ship's medicine, and I promise you, by the end of this story, you will understand why, for a pirate, a quick death by a bullet to the heart was a genuine, unreachable blessing. To truly grasp the horror of the pirate operating theater, you must first understand the world they lived in. A pirate ship of that era wasn't just a wooden vessel. It was a floating coffin, the perfect incubator for disease and rot. The wood was constantly soaking wet. It rotted from the inside out, creating the perfect environment for fungus and mold. But the worst horrors hid below, in the bilge. There sloshed the bilge water, a disgusting cocktail of seawater leaking through the seams, the bodily waste of 100 men, rotting food scraps, and the corpses of ship rats that couldn't survive the competition. The stench rose from the bilge, poisoning the air on every deck. This is what they breathed. This is what they slept in. And they slept tight. Pirates packed in like sardines, shoulder to shoulder in hammocks that rubbed against each other.
A single shot can change
Lice,
everything.
fleas, and bedbugs
The
weren't
real
just an
weight lies not in the
inconvenience.
trigger pull,
They were constant
but in the
companions,
silence that follows.
carrying typhus from one body to the next. If one crew member caught a fever, within a week the entire ship was coughing and burning up. In this world, the concept of sterility did not exist. They knew nothing of bacteria. To them, sickness was God's punishment, or the result of bad air, miasmas. Therefore, even the smallest scratch got while working with a dirty rope could become a death sentence. In this filth, any open wound infected instantly. Gangrene was the true queen of these seas. It devoured flesh in a matter of days, turning a strong man into a rotting corpse while he was still breathing. A sight that made even the most hardened shipmates turn away in disgust. And when that happened, when the pain became unbearable, or when a cannonball turned a limb into a mangled mess of blood and bone, you had only one choice. Go to the surgeon. But who was waiting for you there, in the semi-darkness of the makeshift sickbay? Real, university-trained doctors on pirate ships were as rare as an honest governor in Jamaica. They were expensive. Their services were worth their weight in gold in the Royal Navy, and pirates rarely managed to capture such a specialist alive. And if they did capture one, they guarded him like the most valuable treasure, often chaining him to the ship so he wouldn't escape. But in most cases, the role of the doctor was filled by whoever had any skill with a knife. Most often, it was the cook. The logic was murderously simple. If this man can butcher a pig carcass or a sea turtle, he can chop an arm off a human. The anatomy, they reasoned, was similar enough. Sometimes it was the ship's carpenter, because he knew how to work with saws and chisels. To a pirate captain, the difference between repairing a broken mast and repairing a broken human body was minimal. Both required brute force and tools.
What in the name of the sea?
Look at these tools. What they worked with had nothing in common with modern surgical kits. These were instruments of torture. Huge, heavy amputation saws that just yesterday might have been cutting wet planks. Curved knives for slicing flesh that had never seen boiling water. Hammers and chisels for crushing bone. Forceps for digging out musket balls, looking more like a blacksmith's tools. Nobody washed anything. The surgeon could calmly wipe a knife covered in the pus of the previous patient on his filthy trousers before making an incision on the next man. They believed that thick yellow pus in a wound was a good sign, laudable pus, showing the body was fighting. They didn't know they were personally delivering death directly into their patient's open veins. But all this is just preparation. The set dressing for the main spectacle of horror that began after a brutal boarding action. When the adrenaline faded, the cannons fell silent, and only the groans and screams of the wounded remained on deck. It was time for major surgery. Time for amputation. Try to imagine 18th century anesthesia. It wasn't a gentle sleep. It was a gulp of rum, if there was any left, to slightly fog the mind. And a piece of hard leather or a wooden block shoved between your teeth so you didn't bite your own tongue off when hell began. You weren't just laid on a table. You were strapped down with thick ropes. Or, more often, 4 of your strongest shipmates threw their entire body weight onto you, holding down your arms, legs, and head. Because when the surgeon started his work, the human body would wrench itself with inhuman strength, trying to escape the source of the pain. The surgeon worked fast, not because he was rushing to dinner, but because the patient could die from shock at any second. Speed was the only mercy. First, a tourniquet was applied tight above the wound to stop the fountain of blood that would otherwise spray everything. Then the surgeon took the knife. One quick, deep, circular cut through the meat. Skin, muscle, tendons, right down to the bone. The screams by this point ceased to be human, turning into animal howling. And then, the surgeon set down the knife and grabbed the saw. It was a sound that haunted old sailors in their nightmares for the rest of their lives. The screech of metal teeth biting into living bone. A carpenter's saw didn't cut clean. It tore. It got stuck, leaving sharp splinters of bone that then had to be dug out with pliers. But the worst was yet to come. When the limb was finally severed and tossed into a bucket of sand, a raw stump remained, pulsing with blood. How to stop it? They didn't know how to stitch vessels yet. Ligatures were just appearing in Europe, but not here, at the edge of the world. There was only one way, and it was the most horrific part of the entire process. Cauterization. Next to the operating table, a brazier with red-hot coals always burned. Iron tools heated within it, or a bucket of tar bubbled. Imagine that moment. You were already on the brink of madness from pain, your body convulsing under the weight of your crewmates. And then, red-hot metal is pressed against your open, raw wound. The smell of burning human meat instantly fills the cramped hold. Your own smell. The hissing of burning flesh drowns out your own scream. Many died right at that second. Their hearts simply stopped, unable to withstand the overload of pain. Those who survived this hell were considered lucky. They were given more rum and tossed back into a hammock, hoping the fever wouldn't take them before morning. But even if you survived the surgeon's table, death on a ship had many other faces. Silent, slow killers rotting you from the inside out. You think most pirates died in heroic boarding battles, cutlass in hand? You are mistaken. Most never saw a glorious death. Routine killed them. Food killed them. The scourge of the seas killed them. Scurvy. After months in the open ocean, without fresh vegetables or fruits, without vitamin C. The human body literally started to fall apart. It was a slow and humiliating death. First, you felt constant fatigue. Then your gums swelled up, becoming soft like sponge, and turned black, rotting right in your mouth. Teeth started to loosen and fell out one by one, just trying to chew hardtack that was as durable as a brick. Your breath smelled so foul of rot that even hardened shipmates turned away when you spoke. But the most terrifying thing about scurvy was something else, almost a mystical phenomenon. It made old wounds open up again. Battle scars, broken bones that healed 10 or 20 years ago, suddenly started to ache, split open, bleed, and fester as if they were inflicted yesterday. Your body was unwinding time back to your injuries. It was a slow, agonizing rot while still alive, accompanied by deep depression. Men just lay down and waited for death, too weak to move. Another great killer was dysentery, or the bloody flux. In the unsanitary conditions of the ship, where everyone drank from the same water butt that had gone putrid long ago, this disease mowed down crews faster than any cannon volley. Men died of dehydration in their own filth, having lost all human dignity in a matter of days. And when pirates who were lucky enough to survive the sea finally stepped ashore in Port Royal or Tortuga to spend their loot, another trap awaited them. They looked for women and wine, but found the great pox, syphilis. It was so common in port towns that it was considered almost an occupational hazard for a sailor, a mark that you were a seasoned wolf. And how did the ship's doctors treat this disease? Oh, their methods were no less destructive than the disease itself. They used heavy artillery, mercury. A night with Venus, a lifetime with Mercury, went the old saying. They rubbed mercury into the skin as ointments. They forced them to drink it as salts. It was slow, heavy metal poisoning. Patients started drooling uncontrollably, spitting pints of saliva a day. Their teeth fell out again, gums rotted, bones became brittle. They slowly went mad, suffering from tremors and hallucinations, while the mercury destroyed their brains and kidneys. The cure often killed faster than the syphilis itself. The medicine of the golden age of piracy was a bloody lottery where almost every ticket was a loser. It was a world where knowledge was replaced by superstition and sterility by fire and tar. The golden age of piracy was a short flash in history, bright but incredibly brutal. Today, we love stories of buried treasure, freedom from kings and laws, the romance of high seas adventure. But we forget the price these men paid for every single day of such freedom. Every man who stepped aboard a ship under the black flag with the skull and crossbones knew perfectly well. The chances of dying in his own bed, surrounded by grandchildren, were zero. The hangman's noose in a London dock awaited him, the cold depths of the sea, or worst of all, the blood-soaked table of the ship's surgeon in the dim light of a lantern. There, in the darkness of the hold, beneath the rasp of the saw on bone and the smell of burning human flesh, pirate romance ended and real history began. A history of blood, filth, pain, and desperate survival at any cost. This is Wicked Waters. We have just dragged only a meter deep into this history. If you have the stomach to learn what hides even deeper beneath this body of bloody water, subscribe to the channel right now. In the next video, we will show you what pirates actually ate when supplies ran out. Trust me, after that, you will look at your own dinner differently. The sea keeps its dead, but we are here to make them speak. Until the next storm.